We've always worked closely with a set of consultants, and we got them in, and they said, no, you are ready. But the joke here is they said to me, where do you want to go? And me being me, well, let's go to America, because that's big and shiny and sexy. And they laughed and said, those are the two most difficult places you can possibly think to go.
Death of British business, America, isn't it? Yeah, historically.
I think you've got much more chance of being successful starting a business if you're doing something you're genuinely passionate about. Not everybody does that, so it's not a given. But I think you're much more likely to succeed. Now, that's an example, which is, and what's learning from that, which is really stick to your values. Really do not compromise on them. That was a good slap wake-up call for that one.
Hello and welcome to Inspired Sounds, Rathbones' exclusive podcast dedicated to supporting and empowering entrepreneurs. In each episode, we dive into the journey of inspirational entrepreneurs and founders who we invite to share the thrills and spills of their own journey. We hope you enjoy listening.
Hello and welcome to Inspired Sounds. My name is Rebecca Tunstall. I'm one of the investment directors at Rathbones. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Thompson of Water Babies. Hello, Paul.
Hello. Pleased to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. Just to kick us off, Paul, can you tell us a little bit about your business?
Yeah, Water Babies is a clue in the title, baby swimming company. But we specialise in under ones. Our youngest client was 1 day old, so real specialisms in that. We provide swimming lessons, underwater photography, that Nirvana shot that people have seen, we do that, and products. Those are our three main services. And we do it all through a network of franchises. We're a franchisor. So we have a network of 76 franchises now in 6 countries, from America to China. It's hard to believe now. And yeah, we teach about 80,000 clients a year, 50,000 a week ongoing, 80,000 clients a year across that network of franchisees.
And how did you come up with the idea of Water Babies?
Oh, it's a long story. The whole story is an hour and a half, so I won't do that to you.
the like 5-minute version, Paul.
This is the 5-minute version. I say it's an hour and a half. I know that because we have a little tradition in Water Babies. Everyone that comes and works within the company, I'm very people-centric, and everyone that comes to work, they hear the history talk. So I sit down and I have a good natter with everybody and tell them all about it. But it actually is very random, like lots of these things are. My background was actually surveying. I was a development director for housing associations. So I had a completely different lifestyle. And I was living in Brighton at this time in my life, had a very nice job, had a bit of a yuppie lifestyle, newly married, all that sort of stuff, flat overlooking the sea, life was great. And I was at a board meeting one night and talking about some sexy project we were trying to do in Brighton, talking to a load of old committee members who didn't really understand what I was talking about. And my life changed over a split infinitive. One of them said, "Hey, Paul, there's a split infinitive in your report." And I went, "That's really interesting." And half an hour later, they were still talking about that. And my daughter had just been born. She was a couple of months old, and I wasn't seeing her. And I just thought, here I am talking to a bunch of idiots about split infinitives, not seeing my daughter. Don't want to do it anymore. And I went home that evening and told Jess I wanted to hand my notice in, and we did. So we went from yuppie lifestyle, brand new baby, to absolutely Zippo.
Brave.
I handed it in the following week. And then we went, what are you going to do? So then, okay, I'll go and be a scuba diving instructor in the Caribbean. Totally random. Never lived in the Caribbean. Went off there, got wiped out by a hurricane, came back home, had nowhere to live for all sorts of reasons I won't bore you with, moved in with my mum and my new family, and ended up being a stay-at-home dad, and then started taking my daughter to various activities around London, one of which was baby swimming. And that's where I first came across it, and ended up being a teacher for them. And I've just realised I was born to do it. I never knew that about myself. I just had this natural empathy for the parents and the carers. I'm very entrepreneurial, so I started looking at the industry, and I found just a very well-meaning industry, but quite amateurish, if I'm being honest. And it was not very professional. And I just thought this could be done better. And then we set up Water Babies about a year and a half later, moved to the north of England and set up Water Babies, and then off it went.
I do. It's such an emotive thing, Water Babies, I think, isn't it? You must get, because I remember when we first met, I think I basically gushed all over you for a while.
You're allowed to.
Because I'd use Water Babies. Do you find that people constantly come up to you with their Water Baby stories?
They do, because I always get slapped by my wife and my family because I'm very I brush off what I do, but actually it's very powerful what we do.
Yeah.
And it's the very first thing you can possibly do with your child. Our youngest client was a day old. And that's at the time when you're, as a parent, really you're most vulnerable. And I always had this little saying when I'm talking to new teachers, because lots of them have been our parents, been our mums, and I always say, remember you took your baby, your little most precious thing in the world, and you came to a water babies lesson in less than 20 minutes. You gave it to a complete stranger wearing a blue top who sent it back to you under the water. And they all start crying because it's really emotional. And so people bond with us because there's a lot going on at that time of their life, and they're feeling very insecure about this new thing they've got and this creature, and am I going to be a good parent? And lots going on. And plus we're doing amazing things. They're looking at their little babies swimming around on their own underwater. I mean, it's pretty like, wow, it's overflowing. So people really do passionately fall in love with us. And the other reason they do is that we are very genuine. I'm not, money's important, it's not what drives me. I'm very people-centric, and that just runs throughout Water Babies. And so people genuinely bond with our teachers. They have like a love affair that goes on with our teachers. So yeah, people feel it very genuinely. It's something amazing that we do. It's a life skill, but they feel it really genuinely as well. We've got lots of great stories. You know, people have come out of postnatal depression, or children, they've found the confidence. So just a million stories how people have connected with us through the service that we provide. So I'm very proud of that.
I mean, my daughter's almost 10 and I still have the photo, the underwater photo.
Of course.
It's a really interesting point you mentioned about the culture there. Do you think that it has come from you naturally, or did you purposefully set out to build a community?
It's a bit of both. I'm very people-centric. I'm very passionate about it. I spent my whole working life watching people being told what they couldn't do, why they couldn't go for the next promotion. I'm actually quite passionate about that. I think it's fairly endemic in British society. People are given the negative rather than the positive. And I was very determined when I started my business. I actually didn't know it was going to be a baby swimming business, but when I started it, I wanted to have a culture that was very different. And I get a little bit serious at this point. I genuinely believe if you can create an environment where people really believe that they can feel nurtured and can have a go, then people will do amazing things, normally over and above their own expectation of themselves as well. And on the back of them doing amazing things, you may have a successful business, you may make some money. And money's third in that list, people first. So it's always been within me. And all the people that we've hired in Water Babies, the processes we go through to get people, it's just become endemic right across the business. And it's lovely when people come to us, or they come to our office or come to our classes.
Oh, it's so friendly. Your office is so friendly. Yeah.
Thank you. And then people really feel that. We hug everybody. That freaks people out. There's dogs running around in the office. Yeah. People go around in bare feet. I don't have an ivory tower. I sit next to everybody. We hot desk. It's this, but none of it's for show. It's all incredibly genuine. And it's not easy. We have to make some hard decisions to keep that sort of culture and environment, but we work in it really, really hard. One of the things we do when we recruit people, which is quite unique to us, is at the interview process, everyone's gone through traditional interviews, but the very first thing we ask someone to do is something called an essence of me. Well, they've got to do a 10-minute presentation just about them, not about their business or their life or anything, just who are you? And we randomly pick anyone that's in the office. We just pick 8 people in the office who happen to be there that day, and they sit in on that person doing this 10-minute presentation.
I bet that's terrifying. I mean, it's really nice to understand something, but I bet that's terrifying.
But we don't do it to terrify them. We do them so they really understand the environment. Everyone they love doing it at the end. They always go, no one's ever asked me to do something. I had to really think about myself. And it's amazing the presentations you get. People standing on their heads and baking cakes and all sorts. And, so it just shows it's something we take really seriously. It's really important.
I think it's really interesting because I imagine that culture feeds into the way that you set up your business in terms of the franchising, because it does empower them. But it's not a business model that everyone adopts. Can you talk me through the thought process of going down the franchise model? I mean, it's obviously been really successful, but do you mind just talking through the decision to actually adopt that route?
You're probably expecting me now to give you some very good corporate, well planned out answer as to why we started. And I think, like lots of entrepreneurial businesses, that's not what happened at all. We started in June of 2002, and 6 months later, we had no plans to have a big business at all. And 6 months later, I got approached by my sister-in-law, who was living in Bristol. We were based in Leeds at the time. She was living in Bristol. And 2 friends of mine, college friends of mine, based up in in Edinburgh. And they just approached me completely randomly out of the blue, unsolicited, within the same week. So it's incredibly freaky, and said, we'd like to get involved. And we all knew each other, so we had a meeting. We got together, had a long weekend together. We just laughed, thinking, where's this going to go? And they did. And so we looked at different business structures, and I kind of bumped into franchising, searching around how do you grow a business. And it just kind of resonated because I'm pretty anal about systems and process and controlling quality and being the best you can. As a franchisor, you get to do that. As a franchisee, you get a support structure. You're not on your own. That suited them. So, we gave that a go. We kind of made up our own franchise system with those two, a bit of a DIY, and they were very successful instantly. So we professionalised ourselves very quickly, got a consultant, but we realised it was a mechanism that was going to work for us. And also the people-centric thing, again, it suited that. So we kind of stumbled into it. But once we stumbled into it and we realised it was going to work, then we got very serious about it and became very professional about it. We're now, I'm not sort of bragging, but we are regarded as one of the country's leading franchise systems, and I chair the BFA, so I think we must be doing something okay in that side.
And then obviously you decided at a point to go internationally, and I remember seeing some photos of one of the China, one of the, I don't even know what to call it because it's so enormous.
Yeah.
It's that you have in China, which is absolutely incredible. What made you take the leap to move internationally, and why did you choose the countries that you now work in?
Yeah, we were pretty successful in the UK. We hadn't got universal coverage in the UK at this time. This is around 2007-8. But we used, so we thought, what else we're going to do. But at the same time, we're having these thoughts. We've always got inundated around the world from inquiries, always. And there were periods in our history where the phone used to just ring regularly every week. Can you come here? And my favourite one is, can you come to Mauritius? So we've always had people inbound wanting to take us abroad. And we got to a point where we thought, sort of a critical mass of this happening, we thought we were ready. And we've always worked closely with a set of consultants, and we got them in, and they said, no, you are ready. But the joke here is they said to me, where do you want to go? And me being me, well, let's go to America, because that's big and shiny and sexy. And, Australia, I quite like the idea of that as well. That's also sexy. They laughed and said those are the two most difficult places you can possibly think to go.
Death of British businesses, America, isn't it? Yeah, historically.
All the regulate everything. I had a very steep learning curve. You need to learn how to do it. You need to go to Ireland. So I was like, okay, right, Ireland it is then. So we went to Ireland in 2008, and we started in Ireland at the same time as the world economic crash. But it was our most successful growth ever. They went from teaching 0 to 1,000 babies in 1 year, and it took our first franchise in the UK 2 years. It was just off the chart, amazingly successful. In fact, they ended up on the telly with the Irish Prime Minister, the Taoiseach, as an example of the business doing well in Ireland. So we did very well in Ireland in the worst circumstances, learned how to be an international franchisor, all the things you have to do. And then we had a strategic conversation again with our consultants, and the strategy was go to Canada as a stepping stone to the Americas, go to Germany as a stepping stone into mainland Europe, and to learn how to be in a non-English speaking country, and go to New Zealand as a stepping stone to Australia. And we gave ourselves, and the Netherlands, it was like a quick win in franchising. So we gave ourselves 4 countries, but with a real strategy for going there. And we gave ourselves 2 years to get into 2 of them, and we got into all 4 of them in less than 2 years. And then we're off and running internationally, genuinely.
And do you think that is, a product of the team around you, or some luck?
I think it's a bit of everything, isn't it, when you do your own business? So I do believe in the old saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. That is
very true.
And we always work incredibly hard. I was going to say bloody hard. I'll say bloody hard, really hard. People are really passionate. We put a lot of work into what we do. But also you've got to find the right people as well. Some of the partners that we discovered, obviously we worked hard to try and get the right people. What we did, and there's some luck involved in that. There's a funny thing we always say in Waterbase, we think about doing something like going to Ireland, the phone always goes off. People tend to find us at exactly the time we're thinking of doing something. It's so weird, actually. If you go into our office and just go up to any of the team and ask them, they go, yeah, the phone goes off when we think about doing something. It's really bizarre. I don't know what that is. So it's a mixture of, putting yourself out there, bit of luck, finding the right people. It's a mixture of everything, isn't it? But also, you break eggs. We've made mistakes. We're far from perfect, and you learn.
I mean,
from
that's
that
a great
process as well.
opportunity, Paul. If you'd like to, just for the people listening, maybe talk about a couple of the things that haven't worked for you, and maybe what you've learned from those things. Like, I've got so many, but just one or two things that have maybe changed the way that you've done things.
Yeah, I think that I say to people a lot, actually, when they talk to you about setting up a business, I think there's always this view that if you've got a successful company, that it's all been plain sailing, you must be some super person, and it's not like that at all. A lot of it, you're doing things for the first time, you're bumbling around in the dark, and you just make a lot of errors. You do. And I think the key thing is to learn from those errors and improve on that. So lots of examples of that. So, I mean, one thing that we did, what can I think of? We once chose a franchisee, for example, where we kind of compromised on our standards. We thought, just for a commercial reason, and it's something we promised ourselves we'd never do. We did, and it instantly backfired. And it took us a long time to extricate ourselves out of that. And it was sort of almost culturally damaging, going back to the people thing as well. So, it can have quite an impact. Everyone else who's of a certain standard goes, why have you done that? And you changed your values. And so we had to, that's an example, which is, and what was learning from that, which is really stick to your values. Really do not compromise on them. That was a good slap wake-up call for that one. And I think also we went into, I can think of, you're talking about an international story, and actually we tried our international journey. Before that, one of our teachers went to Australia and asked if they could take water babies over there. This was about 2005, about 3 years before we did it properly. And we did, we gave them a license. And actually in franchising, because we were still relatively green back then, it was an example of exactly what you shouldn't do. You hadn't structured yourself properly, you kind of
weren't ready.
Chased the beach idea. And so, we had to learn. We learned from that. We ended it in very good terms. We're still good friends these days. But that was an example of not doing it well and making sure you do things well in terms of franchising. So that's just a couple. I could give more, but that's just, there's a couple. But I think it's important for anybody who's running their business. Just don't beat yourself up when you make them. You're going to make them.
So it's a learning experience, isn't it?
It totally is. Yeah. Yeah, it totally is.
And more recently, you've started to set up some of your own centres. So you're still continuing the franchising, but you have some of your own centres. That's correct, isn't it?
That's semi-correct. So we set up our first centres in China, because of course that's what you do when you run an international business from Devon. You go to China and do it. So we did that through our master franchise, and we have. We've always had the ambition to completely own one of our own aquatic centres, and we wanted to do that in the UK, and we were incredibly close to doing it. We actually had a project going off the ground, then COVID hit, and then post-COVID, Liz trusted her magic, and the economy went south, and the world turned flat. So we couldn't afford that; it became uneconomic. So we've had to pause that. But we've done something in the middle where we've taken out things that we've pretty well built ourselves, but on long-term rents, but other people still own the facility. So we're inching our way there. So we're very close to having our own census for the first time in the UK.
What's made you pivot away from your very much tried and tested business?
We're not pivoting away. It's an addition, not a pivot. So the core of what we do, renting other people's pools, is absolutely always going to be the core of what we do. But we're at a point now where a franchisee, because our franchises are quite large, they teach anything from 1,000 to our biggest one is just like 3,000 clients a week.
3,000 a week, wow.
Yeah, and they've got a tight geographical area. So we're in a sort of unique position where we know where all the swimming pools are, and we know that the clients are there. And one of the weaknesses of our model, it's a strength and a weakness. It's a strength that we don't have to go and lay out capital to have our own centres, but also it's a weakness because we're at the behest of those centres. They can leave us, they can drop at any time. Other facilities can go wrong or whatever. So that's an issue. So if you think about all these businesses with this concentration of clients in this geographical, we know if we could actually build a centre there in that point, and we could fill it, and therefore it becomes an anchor for that business. That's their anchor. They know it's theirs. They're in control of it. It's never going to go anywhere, but they're still going to be renting all the other pools around it. So that's how we've seen it. It's just an addition, extra bit of security, bit of an anchor. That's the idea.
And the future of Water Babies, where do you see the business in the next 5 years?
Take over the world, of course.
Of course, Paul.
Well, we're always ambitious, so there's just always lots going on. So we do want to spread further around the world, but we're very calm about that. I mean, I told you the countries that we strategically went for, but we've also got into America. We bought a swim school in America last year, and that's going really well for us, and we intend to roll out across America. So steadily, but we want to keep on expanding around the world. We're passionate about people accessing our service. It's a life skill, and we do it well, and we want people to be able to access it. So that's the driver for going around the world. So we definitely want to do that. But also we want to expand our offering. So we've actually just launched something called Oceans of Imagination, which is like an immersive Disney-esque world which we've created for our clients. It's a whole new way of engaging with the world of swimming. In fact, we've launched it to our clients this week, so it could not be more live.
Fresh, yeah.
We've got 5 cartoon characters, and I joke with the team, but I'm not really joking. I mean, one day we will see ourselves going down the red carpet at the Oscars as we getting the gong for our cartoon that we've just sold around the world. So there's always something mad. We're looking at centres, as I say, we're going down this route of Disneyfication. We're looking to expand our programme. We're going to go into prenatal, which we've tried before. We're going to go back to that. We're going to go into slightly older age groups, go to the age of 10. There's always something going on. So it's just not standing still, really. Just what's the ambition in the next 5 years? Just keep on going, keep on growing, just take the next opportunity that's there.
So one of the things I love to ask is if you were at the beginning again, knowing everything you know now and how hard it would be to get to the place that you are, would you start again?
Yeah, I get asked this a lot, and I always say to people, remember what it was that you were passionate about that made you start it. I think you've got much more chance of being successful starting a business if you're doing something you're genuinely passionate about. Not everybody does that, so it's not a given. But I think you're much more likely to succeed. But if you always bring yourself back to that centre point when things get harder, they go difficult, or when they go well and you're trying to celebrate, if you always remember that's what it was always about, that will always drive you on, that will always pick you up or give you the extra pat on the back. And I was really passionate about what we do, and that's always been in my heart. And I've always thought about that, as I've gone through any kind of process or times at Water Babies. So that's my number one advice: be true to that, hold on to the passion, remember why you're doing it. And I suppose the other thing I would say very quick, it's almost aligned to that, is really back yourself. You will get a lot of advice from a lot of people, and you should get a lot of advice from a lot of people. But ultimately, you know what it is you're trying to achieve. You know what it was that got you up that first time to start this business that you've started. So back yourself. And sometimes you can be on your own doing that. I can think of a few occasions where it's just been me going against everybody else. No, we've got to turn left. And that's quite a lonely place. But 9 times out of 10, you'd be surprised you're right. Back yourself.
Doing this and talking to people, it's been really insightful how brave you have to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's the word that I would say, like having done this with a number of people now, is that the bravery in the face of all odds. You could call it bloody mindedness. The bravery in the face of all odds is one of the key characteristics that I think really carries across.
Yeah.
And my final question to you, Paul, for someone who's trying to grow their business, what do you think is the sort of most important thing to focus on? Is it the team around you? Is it the strategy? For you, what do you think has been the key to growing a successful business? I'm sorry, it's a very big question.
No, it's a good one as well. I think I can answer it. I think it's team. It is team. So, when you're growing a business, obviously you are having to employ more people. You're bringing more people into your organisation to grow that business. And every business, no matter what it is as good as the people it has within it. So team is everything. And I'm a real believer, as we go back to the people thing about doing that, really, really empowering people. But I suppose that, and it's a bit of a cliche answer, but I've heard others say it, and I agree with it, is you want to employ people who are better than you.
Yeah.
So, you can't do everything. You don't know everything. You're not a marketing expert and a finance expert and a digital expert and an IT expert. You can't possibly be everything. But if you want to have a successful business, you want the best you can get in those areas. Perfect. So always try and employ people who are better than you, and let them have their head, and let them run, trust them. All easy to say, difficult to do.
Yeah, I imagine.
And I think, you know this about our story, Rebecca, that I was incredibly lucky that I got a chief executive back in the day, Steve. And the sad story of Steve passing away during COVID. But, the two of us ended up being very, very close, like brothers.
Yeah.
And so there comes a point in the growth of your business as an entrepreneur when you may well have to get the step of getting a chief executive in. And that's probably going to be the most important appointment you ever do. And you absolutely want that person to be better than you. I think one of the things I realised that very early on, I think lots of entrepreneurs will say this, is that entrepreneurs are brilliant at starting things. They're probably not the best at running them. I think I'm okay, but I'm not the best. It's not, I don't think I'm terrible. But if I could start something, I'd sooner do that. So there comes a point.
You also were different, weren't you?
Yeah, they're different skills. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
they're different skills, and getting a chief executive in or a person that's senior like that—that's a skill set you really, really want. And we melded very well because we had this madcap entrepreneur. What the hell are you going to do next, Paul? And this guy going, right, we need systems, processes, order, and organisation, and we crossed over really, really well. So good people and employ people better than yourself. We were laughing earlier, aren't we? I'm actually not even in the country now. My team essentially run Water Babies, and I think that's the marker. It's not when you start your business. I was always very determined that if it was going to be a genuine business, it wouldn't be dependent on me as the founder. A genuine business doesn't need you as the founder. Make yourself redundant, basically, and then you've got a genuine business, and you've got the right team.
I actually think that's really insightful of a founder, and actually a really difficult thing to own, that actually the mark of a success is actually if you can walk away and they don't necessarily notice.
Yeah.
But it takes, I think it takes a certain type of individual to be able to do that, and not be so caught up that they can't take that step away and realise that it's about the business and not necessarily them.
Absolutely. I think the other thing I'd say is, selfishly for founders, also there comes a point you're going to think about exiting. That's going to come a point. Not for everybody. Some people want to pass it on to their family, whatever. But if that's even in that instance, frankly, you're not going to be there doing it when you're 90. So at some point, you've got to make yourself redundant from that business. And it's interesting, this as well as I do, Rebecca, if you're going to sell your business or pass it on to somebody else, whoever's going to take it over, particularly whoever's going to buy it, they want to know that it can run without you. So you have to make yourself redundant at some point, and people often leave that far too late.
Yeah.
So, but if you want to be selfish about it, that's another reason for making yourself redundant.
Paul, thank you so much for your time today.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you for joining us. This has been Inspired Sounds.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed listening and watching. To tune in and meet our next exciting guest in the Inspired Sounds series, press the follow and subscribe button. Goodbye.